Shalom, Shalom Zion. Buka Tov to you on this morning. Buka Tov, good morning. Shalom, Buka Tov to the older brother, Yahudah. Shalom, Buka Tov to the younger brother, Ephraim. Shalom, Buka Tov to the stranger, the Ger, Goyim, the Gentile, the heathen, who was once a heathen, but is no longer a heathen, who has come out from amongst swine and come out from amongst dogs, who has come out from amongst the nations, who have come out of her, my people, and who has enjoined themselves into the Bayif of Yasha'al, whereby now no longer being considered a nation, Goyim, a Goy, a Gentile, a heathen, a pagan, but now indeed considered to be a fellow Yasharite, and whereby privy to the same covenants, the same promise, and the same inheritance that were given to Yasha'al and to Yasha'al alone. Bukatub to you worldwide, wherever you may be on this Yom, on this morning. Bukatub to you. I pray that all who are listening under the sound of my voice, that the very barakah of Yah is permeating throughout your being, is permeating throughout your homes, and is following you and permeating it's permeating wherever you may be established or standing or dwelling in this day, that the very barakah of Yah may permeate throughout your being. Mishpaka, I want to talk to you this morning about not giving what is set apart to dogs. Not giving what is set apart to dogs. Now, briefly, in the introduction, I spoke of those who were once amongst dogs, those who were once amongst pigs, coming out from amongst dogs, coming out from amongst pigs. What are dogs? What are pigs? And why is it important that we not give what is set apart to them? Why is it important that we give that which Yah has ordained as being set apart to dogs? To dogs. First of all, again, what are dogs? What are dogs? We're looking at Matif Yahu, or Matthew, the 7th chapter, the 6th verse. It reads here, do not give what is set apart. Do not give what is set apart. And here in this context, he is speaking in the context of the word of Yah. The word of Yah is set apart. It is set apart, is it not? I mean, the word of Yah is set apart. So here, the Hamashiach is speaking in the context of the word of Yah. Now, it has more than one context, and we're going to get into that further down in this video. But in the context used here, the Hamashiach is speaking in the context of the word of Yah. Do not give what is set apart to dogs. Now, the Greek word here for dogs is the Greek word kuon. Kuon. And it means a man of impure mind, an imprudent man, a heathen. A heathen. So we now have the understanding that dogs, that Hamashiach considered dogs, those of the heathen, those of the pagans, of the pagan nations, of the heathen nations, those who are outside of covenant with the Most High Yah, those who are living amongst the Gentiles as Gentiles, as heathens, as pagans, as dogs who have neglected the instructions of Yah in lieu of the doctrines and commands of men. This is what a pagan is. This is what a pagan is, irrespective of what religious belief that he or she has. If they are living outside of the will of Yah, if they are living outside of the instructions of Yah, his Torah, and are obeying the commands and doctrines of men, irrespective of whether or not they are mixing the commands and doctrines of men with the instructions of Yah, that is still paganism. That is still paganism. Thus, these are those who are called dogs. They are called dogs. So here it reads, do not give what is set apart to dogs, nor throw your pearls, nor throw your pearls. Now the word here, the Greek word for pearls is margaritas, margaritas. And it means a word of great value. A word of great value. Of great value. In a greater sense, in a deeper sense, it reads here again, a word of great value. A word of great value. Something of great value that is spoken. That is spoken. In other words, is not Torah Hakma for us? Is not Hakma sometimes referred to as pearls of Hakma, or what the world calls wisdom? So here we are not to cast our pearls, cast our Hakma, cast Torah before pigs. Before pigs. Now, pigs, again, are used in the same context as dogs, as something being unclean, as a pagan, because it is the word of Yah, it is the Torah of Yah that cleanses us. Uncleanness is used in the same context as sin. Uncleanness is sin. Thus, when our ancestors became unclean, whether or not it was leprosy, or whether or not it was menstrual cycle, or running sores, or from touching a dead body, however they became unclean, they were to be placed outside of the camp until they were pronounced clean. Hence, Yahuwah showing in this instruction, showing by this example how sin and our uncleanness are synonymous, and how sin and uncleanness separates us from him. How sin and uncleanness separates us from him. It is Torah that defines what sin is. It is Torah that defines what sin is. Without Torah, we have no way of understanding what sin is. Hence, we have no way of making a distinction between the clean and the unclean. And so, hence, if a person rejects Torah, then this person is living unclean. And this person is hence considered a swine, a dog, a heathen, something unclean, because they refuse to be cleansed. They refuse to be shown the uncleanness in their lives via the light of the righteous Torah. So it reads here again, do not give what is set apart to dogs, and we've gained an understanding what dogs are, and nor throw your pearls. And again, the word here is margaritas, and it is a word of great value. Torah is our Hakma. Do not give this to pigs. Do not cast it before pigs, lest they trample them under feet and turn and tear you to pieces. So we do not give what is set apart to dogs. We do not give a set apart word to dogs. and nor cast our pearls of Hakma before swine, before pigs, lest we be trampled underfoot. Lest we be trampled underfoot. So this is very important to understand. This is very integral, a very integral piece to understand that our Alua, he is intentional. He is not random. He is intentional. He is not random. We are not Christians. We don't stand on corners passing out flyers. We don't stand on corners cussing at people passing by. And Yahuwah is intentional. He is not random. He will send us to whom he would have us to speak to. Yahusha was very intentional about choosing, handpicking his 12 Talmudim. They weren't just random people. They were not just random people. Philippe was who was led by the Ruach Hakodesh to go over and speak to the Ethiopian eunuch. That was not random. That was intentional. Yahuwah specifically led him to that Ethiopian eunuch to speak to him. And when he arrived there, he noticed that the Ethiopian eunuch was reading at the book of Yeshayahu, Isaiah. And he began to teach him from there. It wasn't random. That was intentional. Shaul was not random. He was intentional. He went to the diaspora. He went to the diaspora. He went to the Yahudim who were dispersed amongst the nations, the Gentiles. And he went to Ephraim who was dispersed amongst the Gentiles. It was not random. He didn't go to the Gentiles in the sense that most people think. He went to the diaspora who was living amongst the Gentiles. Now, were some true Gentiles delivered? Absolutely, because the Basora is for all men. It is for all men, but it is first to the lost sheep of the house of Yasharal. And if those who are not of the house of Yasharal would attach themselves, then it is for them too. It is for them too, but deliverance is only through the house of Yasharal. If the nations want deliverance, then they must attach themselves to the house of Yasharal, who the covenants and promise and inheritance were given to alone. Nevertheless, our Alua is intentional. He is not random. So we don't just randomly cast his pearls of Hakma before swine, and we do not give what is set apart to dogs. Zion, that very thing in this season can cost us our lives or can cost us to be severely injured. We must allow the Most High to lead and guide us to whom he would have us to speak to. He knows who his sheep are. We don't. Only he knows who his sheep are, and he alone will lead us to them to speak to them. Now, if you are a proclaimer, then you proclaim to the four winds, and who has eyes to see and ears to hear will see and hear. It matters not whether they hear or forbear. If you're a proclaimer, it matters not whether they hear or forbear, but you're not being specific. You're just speaking to the four winds, and who it is meant for, it is meant for. But in terms of going up to someone individually, if Yahuwah hasn't sent us to that person, we're not using Hakma. We're not using Hakma, and we're putting ourselves in harm's way. We're putting ourselves in harm's way. We are risking giving what is set apart to dogs and casting pearls of Hakma before swine. Before swine. So I wanted to paint that picture for you. That is the context of that particular passage. But I also need you to understand, however, that there is a deeper context to this. There is a deeper context to not giving what is set apart to dogs. Not giving what is set apart to dogs. To further paint the picture for you and to further show you that Yahuwah considers dogs those who are outside of covenant with him, who are living as pagan, who are living as heathen, who are living as Gentiles. I'm going to read Kafah Bet, a second Peter, the second chapter, verse 20 through 22. And it reads here, "For if after they have escaped the defilements of the world, through the knowledge of the Master and Savior, Yahushua Mashiach, and they are again entangled in them and overcome, the latter end is worse for them than the first. For it would have been better for them not to have known the way of righteousness," and we know that this is Torah, "than having known it, to turn from the set apart command." And the set apart command is to turn neither to the right or to the left of the instruction to obey every word that proceeds from the mouth of Yah, to obey his instructions. This is the set apart command, to turn neither to the right or to the left. Nevertheless, it would have been better for them not to have known the way of righteousness than having known it, to turn from the set apart command delivered unto them. For them the proverb has proved true. A dog returns to his vomit, and a washed sow returns rolling in the mud. In other words, they return to their paganism. They return to their uncleanness. They return to their filth. To their filth. Again, it is Torah that cleanses us, because it teaches us to make a distinction between the clean and the unclean. It teaches us the definition of sin and how to separate ourselves from sin, thus how to live set apart. Set apart from sin, set apart to Yahuwah. Only Torah teaches us this. Only Torah can teach us this. In Dabarim, the 17th chapter, the 19th through 20th verse, it reads, "And it shall be with him, and he shall read it all the days of his life." This is the Torah. This is the Torah. "So that he learns to fear Yahuwah, his Aluah, and guard all the words of this Torah and these laws, to do them, so that his heart is not lifted up above his brothers, and listen, and so as not to turn aside from the command, right or left." This is the set apart command. "So that he prolongs his days in his reign, he and his children, in the midst of Yasharal." In the midst of Yasharal. So now we have an understanding of what a dog is and what a pig is. And now we should understand Hazon, the 22nd chapter, the 14th and the 15th verse, when it reads, "Baruch those doing his commands, so that the authority shall be theirs unto the tree of life, and to enter through the gates of the city. But outside are the dogs." But outside are the dogs. Those who obey the commands can enter and have right to the tree of life. But outside are the dogs. Outside are the dogs, the heathen, the pagan, the swine, the Gentiles, those who will not adhere to the righteous Torah of the Most High Yah, idolaters. So we are not to cast or give what is set apart to dogs, to them. We're not to give it to them. We're not to give it to them. This is dangerous. This is dangerous, and we are putting our very lives and well-being and the lives of our families in danger by just randomly doing so. We must be led by the Ruach of the Most High. We must allow him to lead us, as in the case of Philippe and as in the case of Yahushua, by these examples and by the example of Shaul. We must be led by the Ruach, because our Ruach is intentional. He is not random. He is intentional. He is not random. So, what is an even deeper context of that text? What is a even deeper context of that text with respect to not giving what is set apart to dogs? With respect to not giving what is set apart to dogs. I submit to you, Zion, on this morning that if you and I are following the set apart commands of Yah, then we are set apart to Yah. He has set us apart to himself. We are a set apart people. We are a special people, a chosen nation, a chosen generation, a royal kihunah in the order of Melchizedek. We are a set apart people to the Most High Yah. Thus, even in that context, we are not to give what is set apart to dogs or to heathen. Wherefore come out from among them. Be ye separate. Touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you. As his set apart people, we are not to give what is set apart ourselves to dogs. To dogs. This was established in the very beginning with the example of Adam and Huah. With Adam and Huah. Huah was Adam's sister. Oh, yes. It is ordained that we are to marry relatives, Zion. We are to marry relatives. Now, I'm not talking about incest, so don't turn me off right now. Don't turn me off just yet. I'm not talking about incest, but hear me. It has been ordained that we are to mix and marry relatives, those who we are related to. Again, this was established in the very beginning when Adam married Huah. Huah was Adam's sister because she was taken out of Adam. She was his sister. Adam married his sister. Cain married his sister. He married his sister. Shaif, or commonly called Seth, he married his sister. Abraham married his sister Sarah. Yishak married his first cousin, his father's niece. Rebekah was the daughter of Abraham's brother Nahor. Yaakov married the daughters of his mother's brothers. Laban, they were the nieces of and his first cousins. It has been ordained, Zion, that we marry relatives, that we marry those who we are related to. Now, I know what Torah says. That we're not to marry our sisters. The daughter of our father or the daughter of our mother. We're not to marry them. This was established in Torah, but this was before the instructions were given. This is before the instructions were given, but as we are going to see further down, it is still ordained that we are to marry relatives. We are to marry relatives, those who we are related to. Those who we are related to. It is further emphasized, this point is further emphasized in Uikra, Leviticus, the 19th chapter, the 19th verse. It reads here, guard my laws. Do not let your livestock mate with another kind. Do not sow your field with mixed seed, and do not put a garment woven of two sorts of thread upon you. Now, this is an instruction, and the instruction is the instruction. The instruction is eternal. But how many of you know that there is always reasons behind the instructions? There is also an intent behind the instruction. There is also a deeper context, a sud meaning behind the context, behind the instruction. There is always weightier matters, the right ruling, the compassion, and the belief. All of Yah's instructions are issued with right ruling and out of compassion and out of belief, all of them. And so on the surface, this instruction is what it is. It says, do not let your livestock mate with another kind. He does not want us to mix livestock. This is still the command. His creation is his creation. It is perfect. It is perfect. It needs no tampering with. So we're not to mix livestock. Do not sow your field with mixed seed. We're not to mix seed. And do not put on a garment woven of two sorts of thread upon you. We're not to mix garments. This is the command, and the command is eternal. But what is the intent behind the instruction? What is the intent behind the instruction? Reading on in Dabarim, Deuteronomy verse 7, 1 through chapter 7, verse 1 through 4, it reads, when Yahuwah, Yahuah'S, or Yahuwah brings you into the land which you go to possess, he shall also clear away many nations before you, the Hittites and the Girgashites and the Amorites and the Kenaites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than you. And when Yahuwah, Yahuwah gives them over to you, you shall strike them and put them under the ban completely. Make no covenant with them and show them no favor. And do not intermarry with them. You do not give your daughter to his son, and you do not take his daughter to your son, for he turned your son away from following me to serve other mighty ones. Then the displeasure of Yahuwah shall burn against you and promptly destroy you. So again, we see here that the deeper context of Vayikra 19:19 is to not mix Yah's set-apart seed with the heathen. Do not intermingle with them. Do not intermarry with them. Do not give your sons to their daughters or your daughters to their sons, lest they turn your sons and your daughters away from me. We are not to mix what is set apart with dogs. With dogs. We're not to mix seed. We're not to mix our livestock. We're not to mix our fabrics. You see, the intent behind this instruction is to teach us not to mix what is set apart with that which is not set apart, not to mix that which is clean with that which is unclean, to teach us to make a distinction between the clean and the unclean, and to not give what is set apart to dogs. In Dabarim, the 22nd chapter, verse 9 through 11, it reads, do not sow your vineyard with different kinds of seed, lest the yield of the seed which you have sown and the fruit of your vineyard be defiled. Do not plow with an ox and a donkey together. Do not put on a garment of a different kinds of wool and linen together. Again, the instruction is the instruction. But what is the intent behind the instruction? To not mix that which is set apart with dogs. Or do not give that which is set apart to dogs. Do not give it to them. Do not give it to them. Do not mix with them. Do not intermarry. Do not intermingle. Do not give what is set apart to dogs, and do not cast your pearls before swine, lest you are trampled underfoot. So this is the intent behind the instruction. He is teaching here to make a distinction between the clean and the unclean, and he is teaching there to not mix with the heathen, irrespective of color or race. That Yahuwah doesn't care anything about that. He makes a distinction between the clean and the unclean, period. The clean and the unclean, irrespective of race, nationality, tongue, whatever. He doesn't care about that. Yah doesn't see color. He doesn't see race. He sees nations and tribes. Nations and tribes. Race did not even exist until the 1700s, when a man by the name of Johann Friedrich Blumenbach, who was a Freemason, created race. Created it when he divided mankind into 3 categories: Caucasoid, Negroid, and Mongoloid. Up until that point, there was no race. And there still isn't a such thing as race. God doesn't care what color you are. Don't be so shallow. Don't be so shallow. Yah doesn't care what color we are. He makes a distinction between that which is clean and that which is unclean, that which is set apart and that which is not set apart. Period. Period. Between sheep and goats, between wheat and tares, between Yasharal and Esau. This is it. This is it. And he does not want his set apart seed mixing with the heathen. He does not want us giving what is set apart to dogs. To dogs. Further, in Ezra, the 9th chapter, verse 1 through 2, it reads, "And when these matters have been done, the leaders came to me, saying, The people of Yasha'al and the Kohen and Luim have not separated themselves from the peoples of the land as to their abominations, those of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Jebusites, the Ammonites, the Moabites, the Mizrites, and the Amorites, for they have taken some of their daughters as wives for themselves and their sons. Hear me, listen, so that the set apart seed is intermingled with the peoples of the land. So that the set apart seed is intermingled with the peoples of the land. Do not give that which is set apart to dogs. And the hand of the leaders and rulers have foremost in this trespass. In this trespass, we are not to give that which is set apart to dogs. To dogs. Again, the commandment is the commandment with respect to not mixing seed, not mixing fabrics, and not yoking an ox and a donkey together. The commandment is the commandment. I mean, you can add conjecture all you want that Yahusha is the end of that which is a lie from the pit of Sheol, which is a lie from the pit of Sheol. The commandment is the commandment, and it is eternal. But what is the intent behind the commandment? What is the intent? The intent is to not mix that which is set apart with dogs. With dogs. Again, breaking down scripture, it breaks down into 4 categories in terms of the scriptural interpretation of how we break down scripture. The Pashat, the Remez, the Darash, and the Sud meaning, but the Pashat, or the surface meaning of these scriptures, is what it is. Don't mix livestock, seed, or fabrics. It has practical benefits. It has practical benefits. But the Sud meaning, the hitting meaning of this commandment is to not mix that which is set apart, or do not give that which is set apart to dogs, and to teach us to make a distinction between the clean and the unclean, the clean and the unclean. And even deeper context of that we find in Barashif, the 3rd chapter, the 15th verse. And it reads here, "And I put enmity between the woman and between your seed," hear me, "between your seed and her seed. He shall crush your head, and you shall crush his heel." You see, Hashatan has seed. He has literal seed. Some of you know what I mean. He has literal seed. He has literal seed that have the DNA of Nephilim, of fallen ones coursing through their veins. He has literal seed in that respect. And he has those who have been engrafted into his reign of darkness. No different than the reign of light. There are those who are natural seed, who have the DNA of Abraham, Yishak, and Yaakov coursing through their veins in the reign of light. And there are those who do not, but who have been engrafted in and are no different than those of us who do have the DNA of Abraham, Yishak, and Yaakov coursing through their veins. The same applies to the reign of darkness. There are those who have the DNA of the fallen ones coursing through their veins, and there are those who have been grafted in. And we are not to mix, we are not to give what is set apart to dogs. To dogs. He does not want us mixing with the seed of Hashatan. He does not want us mixing with the seed of Hashatan. This has dire consequences. This has dire consequences. And you may lose your life. You may lose your mind. You may lose your very, very soul, your very nefesh, your very being, giving what is set apart to dogs, mixing with them, intermarrying with them. You may very well lose your very soul. Your very soul. So we are not to give what is set apart to dogs. We are to marry relatives. We are to marry relatives. Like Abraham married his sister, and Adam married Hua, his sister, and Shaif married his sister, and Yaakov married his first cousin, and how Yishak married his first cousin. We are to marry relatives. How so, you say? Well, Zion, if we are all in the house of Yasha'al, there are 12 tribes, descendants of 12 brothers. So if you marry anyone in the house of Yaakov, that's your relative. That's your relative. Now, hear me. The true test of a relative is whether or not they are acting or behaving as a relative. How many of you know that we have relatives that don't act like relatives, that don't behave like relatives? And how many even know that we have people in our circle who do not have the same DNA that we have, but act more like relatives than those who do? So the true test of a relative is those who act like relatives, those who act like relatives, those who act like a neighbor, as in the case with the man from Shamarum. Those who act like a neighbor. This is the true test of those who are relatives. Another test is whether or not you have the same father. If you have the same father, then you're relatives. Then, if my sister has the same father that I have, then she is my sister and I am her brother. In other words, if we are both born from above, and if we both have the set apart Ruach of the Most High, whereby he has given us his DNA, whereby he has canceled out all of that bastard blood that is in us, because I don't care who you are, what tribe you're in, we're all mixed now. We're all mixed. We've all mixed and mingled. Very few of us are of pure blood. And you know what? In accordance with Dabarim, the 23rd chapter, the 2nd verse, it says no mamzia or no bastard will ever enter the assembly of Yasha'al. Will ever enter. A bastard is someone who is of mixed blood, either has a Hebrew father and a heathen mother, or a Hebrew mother and a heathen father. That's a bastard. They can't ever enter the assembly of Yahuwah, of Yasha'al. This is why Yahusha declares that unless we are born from above, we will by no means enter into the reign of Shamayim. So we must be born from above, whereby we have received the Father's DNA. He has inserted his DNA into us, whereby negating all of that bastard blood, and now we are his sons and daughters. And so if we have the same father, then you are marrying your sister, and you are marrying your brother, as ordained in the very beginning when Adam married his sister. If you want to get real technical, if you want to get very real technical, we are all the descendants of 3 brothers: Ham, Yafet, and Shem. We're all the descendants of 3 brothers. But Yahuwah wants to narrow that down. He wants to narrow that down even further. He wants us to have the same father, him as our father, him being dwelling in us, dwelling in our hearts, his Torah being written on our hearts, and we being born from above, his Ruach dwelling in us, irrespective of whether or not you're Ham, Yafet, or Shem. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. All are invited to come into the house of Yaakov. He merely wants to use the house of Yaakov to reconcile Ham and Japheth and the rest of mankind and those of the house of Shem who are not of the house of Yaakov. Those of the house of Yaakov in the house, those of the house of Shem who are not of the house of Yaakov. He wants to reconcile the rest of mankind back to himself through us, through his nation of priests, through his nation of priests. So it makes no difference what color you are. It makes no difference what color you are. What does make a difference is whether or not we have the same father, of whether or not we have the same father. If we don't have the same father, then you are casting that which has been set apart to dogs, and your very soul is at risk. Your very soul is at risk. In Corinthians Bay, and I need to hurry through this. I've already been too long. In Corinthians Bay for 2 Corinthians, the 6th chapter, the 14th through the 18th verse, and this is the Brit Kadashah that is basically reiterating what was just spoken. It says here, do not become unevenly yoked with unbelievers, with heathen, with pagan, with dogs. For what partnership has righteousness and lawlessness? And what fellowship has light with darkness? And what agreement has Mashiach with Belial, wickedness? Or what part does a believer have with an unbeliever? And what union has the dwelling place of Alua with idols? For you are a dwelling place of the living Alua. As Alua has said, I shall dwell in them and walk among them, and I shall be their Alua, and they shall be my people. Therefore come out from among them and be separate, says Yahuwah, and do not touch what is unclean, and do not touch what is unclean. How do we know to make a distinction between the clean and the unclean? How do we know what is clean, and how do we know what is unclean? In the righteous Torah. And so if one is rejecting the righteous Torah, they have no way of knowing what is clean and what is unclean. Thus, they're living as pagan, they're living as heathen, and we are not to mix with them. You do not give your sons to their daughters, and you do not give your daughters to their sons. You give your sons and your daughters to relatives. To relatives. And do not touch what is unclean, and I shall receive you, and I shall be a father to you, and you shall be sons and daughters to me, says Yahuwah the Almighty. Says Yahuwah the Almighty. Again, Torah is given to instruct us for our own good. It is given to teach us the difference between the clean and the unclean, to make a distinction between the clean and the unclean, and to not touch what is unclean, to not mix with that which is unclean, to not give what is set apart to dogs, to not give what is set apart to dogs. Hear me, Zion, hear me. If despite what is being spoken on this yam, some of you may be in a relationship with a dog. Some of you may be considering marrying a dog. Hear me. Hear me. Especially if you are set apart. Especially if you're set apart. If you go ahead and intermingle with seed of Shaitan or seed of Chayin, if you make it out with your wits and your life and your soul intact, you are going to remember these instructions that are being spoken in your ear on this yam. You are going to remember. Trust me, you are going to remember. You're not talking, you're not listening to one who doesn't know and who doesn't understand. Who, I will put it this way, experience is our best teacher. Experience is our best teacher. I nearly lost my mind. Do you hear me? I nearly lost my life. But Yahuwah was compassionate to me. He was favorable to me. And so now I sit here proclaiming to you and warning you, Do not mix what is set apart. Do not give what is set apart to dogs. If you do, and if you make it out with your life and with your mind, you are going to remember. You are going to remember. Here's another witness. This may be my last witness. This is coming from Jubilees, the Apocrypha, Jubileem, the 30th chapter. I'm going to read verse 11 through 16. And it reads, "And do thou, Musha, command the children of Yasa'al and exhort them not to give their daughters to the Gentiles." Do you hear me? "And not to take for their sons any of the daughters of the Gentiles. For this is abominable before Yahuwah. This is abominable before Yahuwah. For this is abominable before Yahuwah. For this reason I have written for thee in the words of the Torah all the deeds of the Shechemites." And this is when Shechem, or the daughter, the son of Shechem, raped Dinah, the daughter of Jacob. Raped the daughter of Jacob, Dinah. "For this reason I have written for thee in the words of the Torah all the deeds of the Shechemites, which they wrought against Dinah, and how the sons of Jacob spake, saying, We will not give our daughter to a man who is, hear me, uncircumcised of heart." The circumcision is still required. It is still required to enter into the assembly of Yasharal. The circumcision is still required. For adults, the circumcision of the heart is required, given via the Ruach HaKodesh, given via the immersion of the Ruach HaKodesh. And we are still to circumcise our sons when they're 8 days old. This is not changed. This is not changed. Read in Acts, the 21st chapter. Read in Acts, the 21st chapter. This is not changed. We are still to circumcise our sons when they're 8 days old. "We will not give our daughter to a man who is uncircumcised, who has an uncircumcised heart. For that were a reproach unto us. And it is a reproach to Yasharal, to those who live, and to those that take the daughters of the Gentiles. It is a reproach unto us. And it is a reproach to Yasharal, to those who live, excuse me, I lost my spot. But I'm amongst family that understands. Nevertheless, we will not give our daughter to a man who is uncircumcised, for that were a reproach unto us. And it is a reproach to Yasharal, to those who live, and to those who take the daughters of the Gentiles. For this is unclean and abominable to Yasharal. Make a distinction between the clean and the unclean, because if you touch that which is unclean, then you become unclean. You become abominable. Thus it is written in the Torah, if we touch the unclean thing, if we eat that which is unclean, which has been determined to be unclean, then we too become unclean. We too become abominable. We too become abominable, just like the unclean thing that we're eating. And if we touch something unclean, if we marry an unclean Gentile, then we too become unclean. We become unclean. And there's some even deeper context to this, and we're going to get to this. I've already been too long, but we're going to get to this. For this is unclean and abominable to Yasharal. And Yasharal will not be free from this uncleanness if it has a wife of the daughters of the Gentiles, or has given any of its daughters to a man who is of any of the Gentiles. For there will be plague upon plague. Hear me. Hear me. You're not talking to a man who does not understand, or who has not been through something. Who has not been through something. I don't know, maybe you can see the gray hairs in my beard. I've been through things. I've been through the fire. I've been through things. I was married to a heathen. I was married to a dog. I was married to a Gentile. I was married to an Isabel, and by the favor of the Most High, I escaped with my life and with my mind. Hear me. Hear me. I was stricken with sicknesses. I was stricken with sickness of mind. I was stricken with demonic attacks. Hear me. Be warned. Do not give that which is set apart to dogs. Do not give it to them. Do not give it to them, for there will be plague upon plague and curse upon curse, and every judgment and plague and curse will come upon him, if he do this thing, or hide his eyes from those who commit uncleanness, or those who defile the sanctuary of Yahuwah, and this is the sanctuary of Yahuwah, or those who profane his Kodesh name, his set apart name. Then will the whole nation together be judged. Then will the whole nation together be judged. Yasharal, Zion. Zion. You wonder why we in such a slumber and sleep, and these curses are still on us. It is because of transgression of Torah. And because we are transgressing Torah, the curses of Torah are upon us. But also because we're living as heathen, we're living as Gentiles, and some of us who are trying to walk set apartly are married to heathen, are married to dogs. Your mind is sick, your body is sick, and you're confused. You're confused of mind. You're double-minded, and you're wondering why. Why isn't the Most High Baruch in this thing? He can't Baruch a mess. He will not come where there is uncleanness. He will not come where there is uncleanness in our lives. He cannot attach himself to any kind of uncleanness. Thus it is written in the Torah, when our ancestors were out to war, it is written through the mouth of, spoken through the mouth of Moshe from Yahuwah, that if they had to relieve themselves or defecate while they were encamped, if they were to dig a hole and cover it up, lest Yahuwah come into their camp and see their uncleanness and turn away from them. He won't dwell where there is uncleanness. He will not dwell where there is uncleanness, not in fullness, not in fullness, not in fullness. Nevertheless, it reads here, for there will be plague upon plague and curse upon curse, and every judgment and plague and curse will come upon him, if he do this thing, or hide his eyes from those who commit uncleanness, or those who defile the set apart place of Yahuwah, or those who profane his set apart name, his Kodesh name, will the whole nation together be judged for all the uncleanness and profanation of this man. Hence, when our people in the wilderness mixed with the Moabites, there was, one man who took up a spear, and ran into the tent and ran the woman through and ran the man through with the spear to get rid of that uncleanness out of Yasharal. Out of Yasharal. We're not to have this uncleanness amongst us. We're not to have this uncleanness amongst us, Yasharal. We're not to have it amongst us. We're not to give that which is set apart to dogs. And there will be no respect of persons, hear me, and there will be no respect of person, and no consideration of person, and no receiving at the hands of fruits and offerings and burnt offerings and fat. He don't want it. Nor the fragrance of sweet savor, so as to accept it. And so fare every man or woman in Yasharal who defiles the set apart place. The set apart place. Our ancestors, Zion, ultimately fell, and their seed, us, scattered to the four corners of the Eretz because of the mixing of seed. This is ultimately the reason, because of the mixing of seed and being defiled by them, by the heathen, which caused our ancestors to worship other mighty ones, Ultimately, at the root, the very root of this whole thing, is that forbidden fruit, Not in the sense of the garden. We're not going to go there. That wasn't the forbidden fruit. That wasn't the forbidden fruit. We're not going to go there. But ultimately, at the root of this thing is sex. Is sex. Is sex coming together in union via the act of sex with that which is unclean, giving that which is set apart to pagans, mixing with the nations, brought in pagan influences to our people, which ultimately caused Yahuwah to scatter us amongst the nations, to scatter us amongst the nations. Mixing with them caused our ancestors and Yasharal today to transgress the covenant, to transgress the covenant of the Most High Yah. Yahuwah still wants us to marry relatives. He still wants us to marry relatives. Those who have the same Abinu, those who say have the same Abba. He wants us to marry amongst our people. To marry amongst our people. Again, if two people have the same set apart Ruach of Yahuwah, then they have the same father and are thus mother, brother rather, and sister. Brother and sister. Again, ultimately they fail because of that forbidden thing, that sex. This is why they fail. This is why they fail. This is why the sons of Cain, this is how the sons of Cain, Cain was separated from Adam and Shaif. He was separated from them. He was cursed to wander the earth. And the sons of Adam and Shaif, they were still on the set apart mountain of Yahuwah. They were kicked out of Eden or Adon. Adon was above them. But they were yet still on the set apart mountain of Yahuwah. And so sex and lust and music, which was taught to the sons of Cain by Hashatan, you see, animalistic lust was introduced by Hashatan. This was introduced by him. Lustful music, this was taught to the sons of Cain by Hashatan. And the sons of Cain used lust, used sex, and used this lustful music to draw the sons of Shaif, some of them down from the set apart mountain of Yah, down to them. Down to them. Thus they could never return back. They could never return back. Sex drew them, lust drew them to give that which was set apart to dogs. Sex drew them. There is a reason where Shaul declares flee from sexual sin. Flee, run from sexual sin. He says no other sin. He says all other sin is committed outside of the body, but sex is committed against one's own body. One's own body. Sex. What is it about it? What is it about it that causes men to fall? That causes men to give what is set apart to dogs and to mix with the heathen? Zion, sex has supernatural properties. It has supernatural properties. See, most of us don't understand that because this is esoteric stuff. Most of us don't understand it, but the esoteric, the pagans, they know. They know. Witches, they know. Satanists, they know. Other pagans, they know that sex has supernatural properties. Thus, they have sex magic rituals that invoke demons through sex magic. They understand, Zion, that sex has supernatural properties. Supernatural properties. when we engage in the act of sex, and this is getting back to, if you escape with your mind and with your life, you will remember this teaching. You will remember this teaching. But hear me, when we have sex with a person, we commune with that person. We become achad. We become one with that person. The same way, this is why Yahuwah equates idolatry as whoredom and adultery. He equates it in the act of sex. He equates it with the act of sex. Because when we worship him and we worship him alone, we are married to him and we are married to him alone, and we become achad with him. We commune with him. We commune with our one husband, with our one husband. And so through the act of sex, we, husband Ash and Asha, we commune with one another. We become achad. We become one. Supernaturally, Zion. We become one. Our souls, our nefesh, become one. Become one. And so if you become one with a dog, with a pagan, with a seed of Shaitan, Zion, you're risking your very life. You are risking your very soul. Because hear me, and many of you understand soul ties. Many of you understand that tie. This is absolutely true. This is introduced thus to bind husband and wife together, thus to cause a husband to love his own wife and the wife to love her own husband. It is given to bind us, But if you become one, a commune with a heathen, it's going to bind you to them as well. And you know what else? Whatever ruach coats are attached to their soul, when you become one with them in a soul bind, in a soul tie, those same ruach coats become one with you. They begin to torment your mind. They begin to attack your body. They begin to cause your mind to be sick and your body to be sick and to cause confusion. Many have lost their minds. Many have lost their minds. They have gone crazy. They have lost their minds, communing and becoming one with dogs, with seed of Shaitan. So there is a reason, Zion, that we are not to give that which is set apart to dogs. To dogs. When a man inserts his DNA in a woman, that woman becomes a part of him. She becomes one with him, one with him. Thus, she begins to pick up his habits. She becomes one with him, one with him. And thus, some women who have had multiple men insert their DNA in you, and you may be listening to this video, you still have fantasies about them. You're warped in your mind, you're confused, and your mind is sick, and you don't know why you can't get free. You need to lay before the throne of Yah and beg for him to break those soul ties. To break those soul ties and have them broken before you're fit for any other man. Before you're even fit for any other man. If you're walking in the way, because you're not going to be fit for another man, because you're not going to be able to submit to him until those other soul ties are broken off from you. Are broken off from you. We commune. We become one. We become one. Don't give what is set apart to dogs. Don't give what is set apart to dogs. A warning to my ark. A warning to my ark. Women have power, ark. A power has been given to them. A power has been given to them. It has been given to them. And I dare say, this power has been given to them to kind of even the playing field, because they are the weaker vessel. It's been given to them to cause us to feel tenderhearted towards them and affectionate towards them, because we are stronger. And it causes us to be affectionate towards them. Nevertheless, it is a power. It is a power. As previously mentioned, there is power, there is a magic, there is supernatural properties about sex. About sex. You don't believe me that there's power in it? It caused 200 malachim to fall, to come down, to leave their abode and to come down and lie with them. This is the kind of power that it has, Ak. This is the kind of power that it has. Don't take it lightly. Don't take it lightly. Walk in the Ruach and don't give what is set apart to dogs. It will destroy you if you lie with the wrong woman. It will destroy you. It will take your strength. These women, some of these women carry succubus, and they will literally suck out your strength. They will literally suck out your very soul. Do not give your strength to women, nor your ways to wiping away sovereigns. This is Proverbs, the 31st chapter, the 3rd verse. Don't give your strength to women. Don't give your strength to women. A set-apart woman will nourish you, will submit to you, will call you master, as Sarah called Abraham master, and will not take advantage of this power, but she will nourish you and submit to you. But a devil will destroy you, Ak. A devil will destroy you. I don't care how strong you think you are. A devil will destroy you. Will destroy you. Will destroy you. To my akuf. To my akuf, when you're looking for an ash, don't look upon his outward appearance. Don't look upon his outward beauty. Test the heart. Test the heart. This is where true beauty lies. And don't reject a gift because you don't like the gift wrapping. Don't reject the gift because you don't like the gift wrapping. Don't reject the gift because it is not 6 feet tall, dark and handsome, muscle bound. Don't reject the gift because you don't like the gift wrapping. Looking outwardly alone, Akuf, will entrap you and may end up destroying you. May end up destroying you because some of these men, they have an antivenom to your power. They are devils, and they have been equipped with an antivenom to your power, and they will end up destroying you. When they insert their DNA into you, they will insert them devils into you and may end up destroying you. May end up destroying your mind, destroying your soul, wrecking your body. They may end up destroying you. Do not give what is set apart to dogs. Do not give what is set apart to dogs. Wherefore come out from among them. Be ye separate. Touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you. I pray that this teaching has been helpful. I pray that it has been a barakah to you. I pray that you have been edified. I pray that your eyes have been opened, that your ears have been opened, that your heart has been opened. Yahuwah barak you and guard you. Yahuwah make his face shine upon you and show favor to you. Yahuwah lift up his face towards you and give you shalom. Thus you shall put my name on the banim, the children of Yasharal, and I myself shall barak them. Amen, amen, amen.